Welcome back to the sweatshop, boys and girls. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do a tune-up on a 2002 Honda CRV. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to change out your spark plugs. We'll also be showing you, with regards to the spark plugs, what your gap should be for this particular application, of course, and how to check it. We're also going to be changing out the air filter there on the right so that the engine can breathe nice and freely. And then we're also going to be changing out the cabin air filter so that you can breathe happily and safely in the cabin of the car, of course. And then, so you can see going down the road, we're going to be swapping out the front wipers. All that and more in today's video, boys and girls. Now, before we go ahead and get started with today's video, boys and girls, do me a big favor and hit that subscribe button. Now, with the process of me trying to bribe you into subscribing to the channel out of the way, what we're going to do is get started. First thing we're going to tackle is the air filter, which lives in this region over here underneath this box. And then we'll tackle the plugs, which lives underneath this cover here on the top of the engine. What you're going to need in terms of tools is a 3/8 ratchet with a 3-inch extension, a 10mm socket for that clamp over here, and an 8mm socket that holds the top half of the air filter housing box attached to the bottom half, of course. And then you'll need a needle nose vice grip like this to take care of this guy here so that you don't have a headache trying to do it with a regular set of pliers. You may also need a flat screwdriver to mess around with any little connectors that I don't see currently on camera, but I don't think I will need it. And lastly, you're going to need a impact driver if you have one as an option so that you don't have to crank those guys out all the way by hand. Now, of course, the best advice I can give you when tackling this sort of job is to make sure that you start off always with hand tools. The reason being is because if you live in the Rust Belt like myself and you crank these bolts off with a gun and you break them, it's going to make your life quite a bit more difficult for no reason. So always start off with a hand tool to make sure that they come loose nicely, and that way you won't be drilling these stupid things out of a plastic box or having a headache later on. With them all loose by hand, you can now go ahead and slowly turn them out with an impact driver. Now, of course, use common sense. If it starts to bind up, stop. Of course, with your bolts loose, go ahead and make sure that you can separate the top portion of the air filter box from the bottom portion. Once you confirm that you can go ahead and remove this clamp here and then that clamp there. Just loosen this guy up. Now go ahead and grab your needle nose vice grip, clamp down on this stupid thing and move it out of the way. With our clamps loose, we can go ahead now and try to wiggle this thing out. Once you get it elevated, what you want to do is just slowly work this guy off. Try and twist it by hand and then push it just a bit, and then you can yank this guy out of the hole. With everything disconnected, we can now simply remove this thing. And there, boys and girls, is our filter, which you can see is disgusting. So I'm glad I'm doing all this stuff, because this customer is a good friend of mine and he is going to be driving this thing across the country. So fuel mileage is going to be extremely important. This thing here is going to hinder fuel mileage like you wouldn't believe. So one of the best reasons why you can get rid of this stupid thing and get a good air filter in there. Now, it may be a little bit hard to see down in there, but there is quite a bit of debris. The best way to deal with that sort of debris is not to blow it out. Although you can do it, it's just a pain in the ass because you may forget to put a cloth over the intake duct over here and you may get some crap lodged in there, which can cause you more of a headache. It is much simpler just to remove the 3 bolts that actually hold the base of the box to the vehicle. Get your 10mm and just remove this bolt here, that nut, and that bolt over there, and then you can simply either wash it out or blow it out away from the car so that you know for sure you're not going to have any issues later on. If you're going to use your impact driver right off the bat, make sure you use the throttle wisely. Do not hold it wide open because if you break the bolts, you'll have another headache. Of course, don't mix up the fasteners. You can see there, boys and girls, they are all different. Now, if my calculations are correct, we should have an air box that is loose. My calculations were correct, boys and girls. The only thing now to get off is that stupid snorkel tube, which can be a pain in the ass. Oh my god. Yeah, there we go. Okay, with that stupid tube out of the way, we can go ahead and wash this thing. I'll be back, boys and girls. Now you should end up with a result like this with a nice clean part. Of course, there is a bit of water in there. It's not integral that you get every last bit of water out of there. You can leave it to dry out in the sun. Unfortunately, where I am right now, we have overcast and a temperature of -1, which sucks. Anyhow, that's enough crying about that. Let's go ahead and put this thing back into the vehicle. Make sure you line it up with the stud. Now before you go ahead and put it on the stud, get some WD-40 and spray it into this stupid tube so that you don't give yourself an aneurysm when trying to put it back onto the bottom box. Apply some WD-40 to your finger and then just lubricate the opening of the snorkel tube. And then try your best to force those little bastards back together. Unfortunately, boys and girls, this is a real pain for me to do with the camera in the way, so I'm gonna have to do this off camera. Now with that stupid tube back on, we can go ahead and put our bolts back in. Make sure before you put them in, do yourself a favor and anti-seize them. Then go ahead and run them up. Then of course, check them by hand. If you're planning on torquing your bolts, go ahead and torque them to nothing more than 8 foot-pounds. Go ahead and put your brand new Fram air filter in. This one here is made by our friends there in Mexico. Let's go ahead, place it. It doesn't matter what side you put it on. There is no top and bottom. They're exactly the same on either side. With that thing in place, you can go ahead now and put your cover back. Now before you put your cover back, of course, if you live in the Rust Belt, anti-seize all the 5 bolts that hold the top cover to the base of the air filter box. Do not just throw it in there, because if you try to get this thing off again and those stupid bolts break, you'll want to cry yourself to sleep. Place it on top. And you can also employ a little bit of WD-40 on the intake duct here just to slide it over. That makes your life a little bit easier, as well as for this gray portion here. Now, work the duct in first. With that guy out of the way, you can then work this guy in. And then with that out of the way, go ahead and place your box over top and line up the bolt holes. Then thread them on by hand. With them all threaded up by hand, you can go ahead now and use your impact driver to run them up. Do not hit it with the impact driver. You will break the bolts. Just use this to run them up very slowly. Of course, boys and girls, you won't have to switch sides back and forth because you won't have a camera in the way. Then take your ratchet and just snug these up. I'm not sure what the torque spec would be for these things, but realistically, all you need to do is just tighten them up a bit. I wouldn't go anything more than like 5 foot-pounds, man. Just tighten it up by hand very gently and you'll be fine. That's that for all the bolts. Let's go ahead and put the clamps back. Do the needle nose clamp. And then do your worm clamp. Just make sure this guy's situated nicely and then clamp it. And that's that, boys and girls. Air filter done. Now let's move to the spark plugs. Now you have 4 spark plugs that live under that black cover over here. You also have 4 nuts that hold this cover to the valve cover. So what we're going to do is take our impact driver and just widen these guys out. Okay, yeah. So usually what happens with this process is that these nuts here will separate from these guys over here. So what we'll need to do now is get a ratchet and a wrench and then break these 2 guys free. We'll make sure that we put some anti-seize on the top nut here so that this guy doesn't come off with it. And there you go, boys and girls. There are our coils. The next step, of course, is to remove the bolts that hold these coils in place. 2 of them were already removed with that piece of plastic. Now just go ahead and remove the remaining bolts. With those guys out of the way, you're going to get that flat screwdriver I was talking about earlier in the video that we didn't use for the air filter. We're going to slowly pull up on these guys here, like so, and then we're going to push down and unclip it. Now, if your clips are a little bit stuck in place, what you can do is take that flat screwdriver, sneak it in underneath the clip, and then pull it back, like so. Then, take your coil out, Of course, inspect it to make sure that it is in decent shape and that there's no sign of damage or misfires previously. How you can tell that there may be a misfire is that usually there'll be some white ash or ashy looking sort of grayish whitish residue, which indicates that you have a misfire from this end of the coil at least. And then sometimes you'll see some condensation on the metal portion here, of course accompanied by some ashiness. And of course the next thing that you want to look for is to make sure that your valve cover tube seals aren't leaking. As long as they're not, you won't find any oil on this section here of the coil. This, my friends, is what a good coil looks like and is ready to be reused. The only thing that we need to do before we reuse it is clean this guy up here so that no dirt and debris gets down into the spark plug tube, and then we'll put a little bit of dielectric grease down and around here so that it slides over the plug nice and easily. Now of course go ahead and remove the rest of your coils. Now with our coils out of the way, we can go ahead and access our spark plugs. What you'll need to access your spark plugs is a 5/8 spark plug socket and of course a long extension. This one's a 10-inch extension, but you can get through with a 6-inch no problem. Just break them all loose by hand. And then you can run them out with your impact driver. As you pull them out, make sure you inspect them and then take note of which holes they come out of. Essentially, what you're looking for with the plug is to look at the condition of the tip and the electrode. These ones actually look in fairly decent condition, but they've been in there quite a while. You can see by the condition of the plug. So we're gonna still go ahead and replace them even though they look to be in good condition. I don't know about you guys, I have 20/20 vision and I can't see what the gap is between there. I can approximately see that it's about 1 millimeter, which looks to be in decent spec. But the best advice I can give you is to make sure you gap your plugs. Always use a gap tool like this. It'll make your life easy. When gapping the plug, it is very important to be gentle. That electrode tip there, which the majority of plugs have now, is very easy to break and will fall off. If it does fall off or get fractured and fall off into your combustion chamber, it can wreak havoc on your cylinder walls or get lodged into your piston, doing quite a bit of damage. And then you'll start getting mysterious oil consumption and all that sort of stuff. I've seen that stuff happen, which is painful because someone tries to do their own spark plugs. They, go ahead and gap the thing and mistakenly break off the tip of this stupid thing, and that really wreaks havoc for their engine. So be very careful when attempting this sort of stuff at home, and make sure you double check to see whether the tip is there to begin with when putting it in. What you want to do is slide your gap tool in like this and gently move the spark plug along. When it starts to get snug against the tool, do not push it any farther. You just want to have it snug. Wherever it stops, that is your reading, of course. Do not push it. If you push it, you will break your spark plug. As you can see there, we are at 0.45 inches. So once you get that reading, remove your spark plug. Then you can look up online what the correct reading or gap specification is for your particular spark plug. Compare it, and then you'll know whether this thing is ready for use again. Now, of course, the gap itself is not the only thing that determines whether your spark plug is good for use. What you can do is look at the portion itself over here to see if there are any cracks or signs of misfire or excessive rust or anything like that. Really, these are cheap insurance to make sure that you have a reliable car. I suggest changing them out before or at the same time the manufacturer recommends, as well as a yearly point too. I don't like to keep spark plugs generally more than 5 years. It's not a crime to, but what happens over time is they tend to degrade. So it's up to you whether you want to keep the things around. The other thing that I would say is that when getting spark plugs, don't cheap out. Make sure you get a reputable brand. These guys here are one of the best. I've had issues with other brands in the past, which I won't name, but I've never had any issues with NGK. So definitely get a good brand that is recommended for your vehicle, or get the OE spark plug so that you don't run into issues. Now that's enough preachiness about the plugs. Let's get back to business. Now, there is the brand new plug, obviously on the left, and the used plug on the right. The most important thing with spark plugs is to know what the gap is. If the gap is slightly off, it can lead to issues. For instance, if you have a really large gap, essentially what it can cause is a misfire. And if you have a large gap over time, what will happen is that you will work your coils harder and therefore cause them to fail. So, don't give yourself a headache. Make sure you understand how to check the gap and make sure you have the correct gap for your specific vehicle. The other thing with spark plugs specifically is that they build up an internal resistance. Of course, the new ones, if they're manufactured by a good manufacturer, usually work right out of the box and don't give you any headaches. I don't know about you guys at home, but do you see much of a difference there? Well, I guess on the camera you can, but by eye it's extremely hard to see. So with our gap tool, what you want to do is find out what the spec is. It is 0.045. For the new plug, it is 0.40. So not much of a difference, right? But when you go to the actual Honda service manual, the spec for service is 039 to 043. So although these plugs look fine or may look to the eye the same as these brand new plugs, they're not. To the naked eye, you can't really see that there's much of a difference there. But when you use the proper tooling and you have the knowledge, you can see that these plugs here need to go or be adjusted. Although I wouldn't recommend adjusting them, I'd probably just say check them. Now we can go ahead and install our new spark plugs. But before you do, make sure that you compare the number to your old spark plug to make sure that it is the same plug that you're putting in there. Grab your brand new spark plug, make sure you seat it into your spark plug tool properly. Then take it and run it down into the hole nice and gently. Make sure that the plug does not get hung up on anything and make sure it doesn't drop into the hole. Then you can thread them in by hand as far as it will go. Do not use an impact driver to tighten your spark plugs. You will crack the porcelain quite easily. If you are good with an impact driver, you can use it to run it down, although if you're a novice or a do-it-yourselfer who's not really comfortable with an impact driver, don't use it because you'll give yourself a headache. Be sure to check the gaps on all of your new plugs. Now when tightening your spark plugs, there is of course a torque spec that is given so that you don't over tighten it. If you don't have a torque wrench, it's not that you can't do spark plugs, but you don't want to reef on it and destroy the goddamn thing or the head, because then you'll have a real headache. This guy here is a crush washer. On new plugs, they aren't crushed yet. So if you don't have a torque wrench, what you can do is take your ratchet, make sure that it is snug. Once you feel it get snug, what you can do is 3 quarter turns, and that generally is good enough. Although with most modern vehicles, it is suggested and the best practice to employ the use of a torque wrench. 1, 2, and 3. Now that isn't complete quarter turns, but by my experience I can feel that the thing is tight. Now of course I'm not going to leave you hanging. The torque spec for these guys here is 13 foot-pounds or 18 newton meters. Now of course go ahead and torque them. That's that for the spark plug, boys and girls. We are good to go. Now we can go ahead, wipe up our coils, grease them, and put them back. Now with your spark plug coils, what you want to do is apply a little bit of grease to your hand, but before you apply it to this section here of the actual spark plug coil, wipe up the spark plug coil. Get rid of this dirt and dust that's around the boot, and then take your microfiber cloth and just wipe down the rest of the coil here. Once you've made sure that you got rid of any possible moisture or dirt, then you can go ahead and just put a little bit of grease around where your spark plug is going to go. Follow the same process for the rest of your plugs, and then go ahead and put the coils back in. Then you can go ahead and sneak your connectors back into place. Okay, with all your coils back in place, we can now tackle the issue that we had earlier with that stupid coil cover. If you've run into the same issue that I have, what you can do is, of course, get a wrench and then your ratchet and twist this guy apart. Oh my god, that's a lot tighter than I thought it would be. Fuck. Alright, let's try that again. Oh, okay, yeah. If yours is as tight as mine, go ahead and get an impact driver. And then show this mother who's boss. Whatever you do, don't say that sort of stuff and then attempt it with a dead battery, because then you look stupid. Let's go get another battery. Now let's try this again. Holy shit, man. Yeah, that's quite tight. Like, check that out, man. It even slipped. That's how tight it was. This is yet one of the other reasons why you shouldn't let monkeys or stupid people work on your cars. Wonderful. Now with this ridiculousness out of the way, what we're going to do, of course, is employ the use of some anti-seize on this end here. We're just going to torque this guy properly. Now you can go ahead and place these guys back into the holes where they need to be. It was number 2 and then number 4. Then get your bolts like this and put them back into number 1 and 3. If you're not sure what I'm referencing, it is the cylinder number. Then use your impact driver to run these guys back home. Now I'm not sure what the required torque is for these bolts, but I'm going to torque them to 10 foot-pounds. With them all torqued down, get your nice copper anti-seize and employ some of it on these studs here. And now finally we can put our cover back. Don't make the same mistake that the other people made and try to wrench these on there as though they are a wheel lug nut. They just need to be snug. They hold a decorative cover. Well, it also has a purpose. It just needs to be snug. They hold a cover down. It's not rocket science. In case you're wondering, this is not a special nut. The nut is supposed to look like this, but because we live in the Rust Belt, this has now become one piece. So if you have a piece that comes out like this for your particular application, be sure to memorize which hole it comes out of. Otherwise, you'll never get this thing to bolt up. And now, just snug them up by hand. That's that for the spark plugs. Let's go ahead and move inside and we'll get that cabin air filter done. Wait, no. Let's do the wipers first. Yeah, let's do the wipers first. Now let's move to the front windshield and get those wipers changed out. Now, if you're doing the same process as I'm doing and you have your hood open because you were just working inside the engine bay, in order to access your wipers, the most important thing you'll need to do is close your hood. You might ask why. I'll show you. Physically, it is very hard to get your wiper off of the blade with the hood in the way. Believe it or not, I have seen people attempt this. It's quite funny and usually ends in tears because they crack their windshield. So let's go ahead and put the hood down. Now don't be like everybody else and drop your hood from a height of yay high. It should be no higher than this, or 6 inches. Insert that's what she said. Now with your hood out of the way, you can easily pull up on your wiper arm and it makes it much easier for you to access your wiper blades and replace them. But before you replace them, you'll need 2 things. Besides a working pair of hands, you'll need a flat screwdriver to sometimes aid you with replacing this thing, and a piece of cloth so that you don't have a broken windshield if you somehow knock this without the wiper blade there. Generally, that is the biggest mistake that people make. They'll be fumbling around with the wiper or the wiper box and then they mistakenly hit this and this happens. Now when the blade isn't there, the sharp metal edge is there to crack your windshield and then send you into a panicking frenzy, which you then will probably make more mistakes. Anyhow, let me get the cloth and I'll be back. Go ahead, take your nice piece of cloth and fold it. Then fold it again, and then fold it again. What you're trying to do is bunch the cloth together as much as possible so that there is a soft place for that hook to land if it does hit your windshield. What you want to do is line it up like so to make sure that the hook is in that place. Then, of course, raise this guy up, and now you can safely remove this thing without the potential for you to have a headache. Now, what I can't show you on camera is behind here on this J-hook style wiper arm, there is a little tab. What you want to do is push the tab in with your finger. Now, for whatever reason, if there's a bunch of dirt and grime that is causing this thing not to come apart, you can use your flat screwdriver to push this guy down, this little tab. Then when you push the tab down, you can release the J-hook from the arm. And voila, my friends, your wiper arm is now free. Now let me show you the J-hook. Now in case you're wondering, this is the hook that I'm talking about and that is the tab. That little nipple there or protrusion on this plastic piece is what hooks into that J-hook. This is your J-hook or J-hook style arm. Now go ahead and get the wiper that is of the appropriate length. Pull out all the crap that they give you in the packaging. Come on. Now you can go ahead and get your brand new wiper assembly. Before you go ahead and attempt to put it on, make sure you compare the size to your old wiper to make sure it is the correct length. If it is, a 1/2 inch bigger or smaller, not really a big difference. Sometimes that's just the manufacturer putting the hook position slightly off. whatever, not a big deal. As long as it doesn't collide with any moldings or anything in the windshield area other than the windshield, you're good to go. That being said, majority of wipers on the market, unless they are specific for a model car, will have a J-hook, because this by far is the most popular type of attachment for any sort of wiper. With the Bosch beam style blade, what you're going to do is clamp these two tabs here in order to release this piece, and then you have your J-hook already in place. All you have to do is slide it in like so, and then use a little bit of strength to get it to go into place. Once you hear that clip, you are good to go. Then you can close this locking mechanism down. And that is it, my friends. Your wiper is installed. Now, what I can tell you is a good thing to do is clean off any dust or residue that may be on your windshield so that you don't contaminate your new blade, and it will also help it last a little bit longer. Then go ahead and put your blade down nice and easily. Swap out the next side, and then I'll show you how to test them. Now, with your wipers installed, you can go ahead and test them. Before you do that, make sure your windshield is nice and wet. So spray it with a bit of washer fluid. Don't test it dry. That is the worst thing you can do, because if there's any sand or dust or crap that was on your gloves or on the blade or on the windshield where the wipers lay, you're potentially going to scratch your windshield and potentially damage your brand new wiper blades. Okay, let's go ahead and test it. Now, of course, what you're looking for is a nice clean wipe that is streak free. You're also looking for the blade placement and making sure that it is touching the windshield throughout its sweep. If it isn't, you may have a problem with your wiper arms, or the blade may be defective. At that case, call your parts store back and cry a little. Okay, boys and girls, that's that for the wiper blades. Let's go ahead and install the last part of this tune-up, the cabin air filter. In order to change out your cabin air filter, you're going to need to access the passenger side of your vehicle. The next thing you'll need to do is open up your glove box. With your glove box open, you can see that there are two tabs here and here. We're going to need to employ the use of our flat screwdriver and pry them out. This is the backside of that clip. What I like to do is take this end here and just wedge it in between the plastic glove box and then between this piece. With it wedged like this, what you want to do is work them back and forth like so. It should pop off nicely, but don't be overly aggressive with it, because if you break it, of course, it will suck. Doing this with one hand is very challenging. You should end up with a result like that. Then go ahead and pull it completely out. Now do the other side. Now with those two clips out of the way, you can lower your glove box out of the way completely. Of course, all the junk that's in your glove box will fall out. With all the crap that was in your glove box now on the floor and a mess for you to clean up later on, you can first take care of the mess that is the air filters, the cabin air filters specifically. This piece here, which wasn't put back properly. People are so stupid. Oh my God. Okay, so this door is supposed to sit like this. That's how it's supposed to sit. Obviously, it wasn't sitting like that. So what you're going to do, if yours was put back properly by a professional, is push down on this tab like so, and then pull up on the door, and then pull that back section there out. With that out of the way, you can pull out the trays that hold your filter. There are two of them. This is the first one. Oh boy. Let's see what this looks like together, boys and girls. That should look disgusting. Just yank it slowly. Oh boy, yeah, that's a lot of crap in there. Okay, boys and girls, so look at that. Previous fellow, oh my God, there's so much dirt in there, it's almost level at certain sections. Oh, dude, that's disgusting. Okay, so boys and girls, as you can see, this thing is disgusting, and this is why it is important to change out your air filter, your cabin air filter, because you breathe this stuff. Now, this dry stuff here isn't the worst to breathe, but what I can tell you is if you somehow have water fall onto this, or you have a drainage blockage in your cowl panel, which is where your windshield area is, this stuff can grow fungus, and that stuff can make you really, really sick. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and show you how to pull out the other one, and then we will blow it out in there and just clean it up. As I was yammering away, what I did was, of course, pull this to this side. Oh man, look at all that crap. You can see all the leaves just falling off at the corner there. Just yank it out slowly. Usually it isn't this hard to get out because there's not so much crap usually. Oh man. So yeah. Oh man, that's horrible. Okay, boys and girls, you can see it looks like maybe some little critter might have been in there, or it's just there's just an excessive amount of vegetation from trees and whatnot that has landed there somehow. So we're gonna get a vacuum and clean all that crap out. Let's throw it on the floor here. So we're gonna blow all that stuff out and vacuum it in there as much as we can. Get rid of as much crap that we can out of this system. That way it's clean for the customer. You're also going to remove the old filters from their trays like so. Just push them out. Oh my God. Once they are out, you can go ahead and clean the crap that is on this plastic tray that holds them together or holds them in place. Now, don't take both of them out. Do one by one. Treat them like drum brakes because sometimes these markings aren't very clear or aren't there. So you don't want to mix up how they go in. What you want to make sure is that you put these in correctly. Just remember, boys and girls, it is important to make sure that you know the way that these things came out. So what you can do is keep them lined up nicely so that you don't lose track of that. And of course, make sure you take note of the way the filters came out. Look at the difference, man. That really did its job. This, my friends, is the bad side, and this is the filtered side. So luckily, there's not too much crap there. Anyhow, that's enough rambling about this. Let's go get all this cleaned up and then I'll show you how to put it all back together. Now, of course, this was an exceptionally dirty air filter. What I suspect happened is either the customer was not informed about why he should replace these things, or he went for the loop joint service, and you know what they usually do is they just recommend that you should get it changed. They charge you an arm and a leg and you think you get it changed, but in fact, boys and girls, they never change it. I hear that perfume is a big seller at those types of joints so they can mask the smell of the bullshit they're usually selling the client. Anyhow, boys and girls, let's move on to our next step. As you can see here, our Honda, because it's an awesome car, has the airflow direction in place. So when you get your new air filter, most of the good ones will have a marking that also says the direction of the airflow. Of course, make sure they match. Now, when putting these guys together, what you want to do is be aware. This specific model has a bit of a pleat here that doesn't line up with this little cage here that holds the pleat. So if you just force it on, you're of course going to rupture the filter. So what you want to do is just wiggle it into place and don't wreck the filter. Be gentle with it, and there you go. Now with that guy in place, make sure you do the same thing for the other side. Do not rupture the filter. You should end up with a result like this where the filter sits flat inside of the tray that holds it. You shouldn't have it protruding on either end here, and you shouldn't have any gouges or damage to any of the ends. We can now go ahead and put this guy back into use. Now remember, be very careful when inserting them. Try to get them as gently as possible. Just work it in, take your time. Make sure you line it up and then push it all the way over. That's one installed. Let's do the other side. With the other guy installed there, you can go ahead and properly install the cap. Don't be like the last guy. Slide this side in first into that little slot, and then clip it into place. When it's clipped into place, just make sure it actually is. If you don't hear the pop, you probably won't because of all the sponge material. And then that's it, boys and girls. We are done with installing our cabin air filter. Now all we have to do is reverse the process and put together our glove box again, and then pile all the crap that was in it back in. Now with your glove box ready to go back in, we're going to have to put these clips back into place. So what you're going to do is get past that metal piece that is the stop. You're going to take this guy here, put it in through the hole, slide it into place, and then you can bring the box down, use your thumb to push it back in. Once you have the one side clipped in, go ahead and do the other side and you are officially good to go. Then go ahead, close your glove box to make sure that it is fully functioning and operational and you somehow didn't screw that up. Giggity, giggity. Well, boys and girls, we're officially done, and all that's left to do is to test our workout by testing the different components to make sure we didn't screw anything up. Well, boys and girls, we are all done in terms of the tune-up for the 2002 Honda CRV. Now, obviously, if you're watching this video, you definitely want to take care of your vehicle, and you're attempting to do this stuff or understand the process of what goes into doing a tune-up, which is great, of course. But if you have a friend who thinks that air filters, mainly cabin air filters, are a scam, please show them this video, because they too may be breathing this sort of stuff in the cabin of their vehicle and losing even more brain cells. But if they have children, children have no say, man. They can't do anything. So show them this video so that they consider actually having it done or doing it themselves. You don't have to spend an arm and a leg. Usually these filters aren't very expensive. Yes, there are some models that are ridiculously expensive, but don't let your filter get to that state. If you've taken anything away from this video, boys and girls, please change your cabin air filter, because that is disgusting, man. Of course, I hope you learned something and enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss one of my new videos. And as always, thank you for watching. We will see you in the next one. And then we're going to be changing out the cabin air filter so that you in the cabin can breathe nice and freely without the worry of fungus entering your lungs or some sort of disgustingness. So that the engine can breathe nice and healthy. Now, with the process of me attempting to bribe you into subscribing to the channel, oh, for fuck's sakes, we will now go ahead and begin with the regular maintenance that is needed for these types of vehicles. What the fuck am I saying? We'll tackle the easy stuff first by taking care of the air filter, and then we'll move over to, we'll start that. The fucking things in the background, it's gonna annoy me. Now, hopefully you have subscribed to the channel after hearing my wonderful plea for you guys to subscribe so you can help a brother out. So stupid. Now, hopefully you guys have gone head. God damn it. It's not the end of the world, but it will definitely make your life quite a bit easier. And, the fuck did I say? No, it's gonna make your life harder. Is my face in there? Oh, doing this blind off camera is a pain in the ass. There goes that fucking compressor again. I swear to God, there are more noises that come out of my neighbor's shop than I can fucking imagine. I don't even know what half the equipment or shit is in there. Fuck's sakes, man. Oh, for fuck's sakes. This is gonna be a pain in the dick. I should do that from the side where I can see it. This fucking camera's a pain in the ass sometimes. Of course. Sound like I'm some sort of New Yorker or something. Employ the use of the camera to help you, Jimmy. There we go. How you can tell that there is a misfire is you'll usually when it snarts, what the fuck? And as you can see there, we are at, it's too shiny. Damn it. As well as I don't know about you, but what is the spec for fucking focus? Now this one here being at 0450, is it in, for fuck's sakes, man. Let's just start that shit all over again. You can see there on our old plug, why aren't you focusing, you fuck? Now we can go ahead, focus, dude, come on, man. Now we can go ahead and install our new spark plugs. God, that was painful. What the fuck am I saying, man? Now, of course, the most important thing with spark fucking plugs, why the fuck is it not focusing? And then when you move it across, there's not much, whatever, fuck, they're not gonna care. So a general rule of thumb, I should have sneaked my connectors back into place as I put the fucking coils back down, but I wanted to make a cool shot. Of course, that didn't happen, boys and girls, so just put your damn connectors back in place. Yeah, this isn't gonna look pretty. Thank God that hit the floor. Now you can go ahead and place these guys back into their respectable... Where are the other two fucking bolts? Damn it. Now when the blade isn't there, there is a sharp metal Now, I'll be back. That sounds so stupid. Now, I'll be back, boys and girls, and I'll show you what to... for fuck's sake, stop rambling, Jimmy. Just get through the fucking video. Fucking piece of shit compressor. Now, of course, oh my God, why can't I say of course today? Jesus Christ, man. I don't even know what I said right there. For fuck's sakes. I hear that perfume is a big seller at those joints so that they can, for fuck's sakes. Excuse me. Now with our glove box, you're gonna use, oh fuck. This is a lot harder than you guys know at home because there's not a lot of room here. Fuck.